And hello, everyone. Welcome to this, what I hope will be very useful and helpful and action-oriented presentation on the new rules of social media. And what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on really how do you get more impact, performance, and ROI from your social media? What can you do to really improve the results, enhance your results, and what can you do starting today in this sort of new way of thinking? And so a great way to kind of get started is I'm going to sort of share my screen here, and then we're going to get started on looking at kind of defining what are some of the new ways and new questions you should ask, and then also what are essentially 6 new rules that will govern how we approach this process. So Jackson, do we have folks in there with questions queued up? What I'd like to do is kind of make this sort of like interactive as much as we can. I'm going to start with some of the new rules and some of the background, and then we can kind of proceed there as well.
Yeah, for sure. Chat, if you have any questions, if there's anything that you're looking to learn today, anything particularly you want more insight on, go ahead and drop your questions in the chat. We're going to be addressing those questions in real time with Ben. Really, it would be helpful to know what are the big questions, burning questions you got about the new rules of social media. Oh, you muted, Ben.
Oh, I've unmuted you. Now on mute. Okay. I'll give you a little bit of sense of like what our perspective is on this process and why we think that social media, this is really the golden age. And contrary to what a lot of people say about, hey, do you only have to pay for social media? Does organic not work anymore? We actually think in many ways it's the opposite. So first of all, a little bit about us. Just in terms of our agency and a little bit of background, just so you can understand our perspective at how we approach this. I'm the CEO of Top Global. We're an interconnected network of agencies, and some of the agencies that we're well known for include PR Hacker, which is a kind of a new viral way to approach PR and social media, as well as like a data-driven agency like Top Data, or a creative agency where we create all kinds of like interesting creative and social content. And some of the companies we work with, that starts with, you know, a ton of scrappy startups that are fast growing, anyone from Postmates on the tech side to Harmless Harvest, which is like the world's best tasting coconut water if you haven't tried it, to really big brands engage with us on social and influencer and PR and digital advertising. And how I kind of got my start and what's going to inform some of this presentation is way back when, long time ago, I had to figure out how to make my book go viral. That is me on the cover. I was the author of a book called How to Go to College Almost for Free. And originally it was self-published. No one knew about it. And so suddenly we needed a way to spread the word. And one of the ways we leveraged that was doing a lot of kind of sort of word of mouth buzz powered by really social media, especially as social media was becoming a more and more important force. And we used a lot of viral sharing to get to 2.5 million copies sold. It was rare for a self-published book to be a bestseller. And then eventually that book was sold to HarperCollins and as well as another book. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about today is how to use social media, not just for you know, hey, we got some high audience reach, or hey, we got some high reaction numbers. Instead, how can you use it for like actual commerce, or to drive an action, or to drive user signups? Those are all things that I kind of learned from sort of building viral sharing around the book. And then finally, I actually want to mention one other platform that we're going to leverage today. So we actually created one of the visions of Top Global. Is actually a platform called National Today. And what National Today is the world's first like integrated marketing platform that basically leverages viral holidays. So it's at nationaltoday.com. I'll show you a little bit more about the site a little bit later. I'm going to leverage some of the social learnings and experiments we've run on the site. The reason we created it is that there's all these viral holidays like National Tequila Day, or National Margarita Day, or National Dog Day, or Cat Day, or Respect Your Cat Day, or any number of these viral and buzzworthy holidays. And we realized there was great viral power in that. People were using them, but there wasn't a great place to like sort of aggregate all of those holidays together. So we created nationaltoday.com. We built, you know, PR, influencer, and digital platforms that extended it. And typically we have 5 million unique visitors or more per month. And what I want to show you is how we leverage social media with National Today. And I'll give you a bunch of examples today to create disproportionate oversized reach. So if that sounds good, that's all I'm going to talk about me or us or what we do. Now it's going to be all about you and how you can leverage these new rules. Okay, so to start off with, a good kind of frame up for what we're going to talk about is what social questions are we asking now that we didn't ask before? What has sort of changed about social media and how we approach it and the questions we ask, and what can we learn from that? So here was the old way for social media. We maybe would ask ourselves a question: what is a great idea for this upcoming social media post? Okay, Jackson, what do you got? Eduardo's watching this. What do you got? Mike, you got a great idea for us? That was kind of like the old way. Now, in the new way, it's a little bit different. We would say, instead of just leveraging a raw idea, which top performing content, whether we made it or someone else did, can we build upon in a fresh way? So instead of this approach of if we make it or if we create it or if we build it, they will come, instead, it's a much more additive process. We're looking at what works with a certain audience, and we're leveraging that to be able to make our content more effective. Okay, so that's the new way. Here's another one. Let's see here. Old way. We would say we'd be in these integrated marketing meetings with big brands. We do this annual planning for, let's say, CPG companies, and we'd say, how can we maximize our paid advertising reach? And you might be thinking, well, that's a pretty good question. We want to maximize ads. We want it to do well. But instead of asking that question, here's what we're asking now. The new way is, how can we seed our content with key audiences for viral amplification? So one of the big differences here is that we'll still pay, like we do a lot of organic work that might have a paid boost with it. But instead of buying raw reach, meaning we want to reach 1 million people, so we're going to pay to reach 1 million people. That's expensive. Instead of doing that, we might say, we want to reach 1 million people, so we're going to pay to seed it with 5,000 people who are really disproportionately able to share this and be really high engagement. And we're going to use that small paid buy on the smaller group to get the 1 million people anyway, right? So it's a new way of thinking, and it's the most efficient way in terms of your spend to leverage your paid spend. Don't pay for raw reach, but actually look at ways that you can use it to seed things and amplify natural sharing and organic. We'll talk about that a little bit more later as we get into the new rules. The old way. How did this video perform? Like, lots of you want to get great performance on your video. We want that too. But here's the new way. What key moments from this video can we leverage to create more high performing content? So it's much more derivative, and I don't mean derivative in a bad way, like we're deriving something from something else and we're not really reinventing it. Instead, we're saying, what are the golden moments? Where did we have the highest engagement? In this video, if we're watching people consume it, where are they dropping off and where are they just like spiking up in terms of their interest and involvement and engagement? And if we see those little moments in the video, how can we use them to create more? So instead of being one and done, being like, hey, we make this video, it works, it didn't, what was the performance, report it out, did we hit our KPI? Instead, it's like, let's string these together. Let's create a sequence. Let's take the learnings from this and make it even more or better or different or reinvent it in some way. And we're thinking like that now. And it's making us more effective. The old way. Well, what social platform does this content go on, right? Okay, we have this cool idea maybe, and like, okay, is this very visual? It's gonna go on Instagram, or like, okay, oh, this is like kind of short form fun video. Is it for TikTok? Or like, oh, is it, it's gotta be like a highly targeted audience of certain job roles. Okay, we're gonna go on LinkedIn and we're gonna retarget on Facebook. Like we do think about that. But the new way of thinking is, how can we enhance or reinvent this content for multiple platforms? So specifically, what we're actually looking at is, how do we take something that might be at the core, the kernel of something, and then be really appropriate to each platform, but also reinvent it, also re-amplify it, make it more. So what has happened is social media is much more of a process now, almost like software development, What I mean by that is it's not so much that like we make this, this grand social media post, then we're done, like make another one. It's like version 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 2.0, 2.1. And those different versions may be on different platforms as we expand and we make it better and we learn. Old way. How come our posts have low engagements? So what, what happened here? What can we do to fix it? Why is engagement low? The new way, what timely moments can we leverage to drive higher engagements? So it might not even be the core idea of the post itself. It could just be the timing of it with the right cultural conversation that's going on, or the right trending topics, or the right targets that match that. Or you could have a great social post, but it got drowned out by a much bigger event. Hey, we're in a pandemic after all, right? So all of those things impact how we think about it, but instead we're thinking much more about time triggers. And so ultimately we need the right message to the right person at the right time. Sometimes it's not just that the message was wrong. Sometimes like maybe the timing was off, or maybe the message combined to the person with the timing wasn't quite right. And we're looking at all of that. And last couple here, old way was, what social posts should we do next? What's on that content calendar? But the new way is, how can we snowball our posts to get faster results? We're going to talk more about this, but it's not just the individual post anymore. It's the sequence of posts. And I don't even mean that just in an audience engagement way, although there's audience engagement benefits. I don't even mean this in just a consistency of branding or message way, although there's benefits for that too. I actually mean leveraging the social platforms themselves. They reward a sequence more than an individual post. And if you understand that, it affects the way that you brainstorm and shape content. We're going to talk about more of that when we get into the new rules. Okay. And finally here, the old way deals with metrics. We might ask, how many impressions did we generate from this social post, right? We might say, okay, impressions is one way, right? It's kind of the old advertising model based on really not so much like targeted advertising, but like kind of the old TV model of advertising, right? Like, let's just get mass eyeballs. That was the old way. The new way, how is this social post driving our core business goals and KPIs? It doesn't have to be divorced from that. It can drive key business goals. We're going to talk more about how you drive, whether that's a website visit, or whether that's links for SEO optimization, or whether that's trial of a product, or whether that's a lead for B2B, or whether that's a purchase. Let's do e-commerce. There's all ways that social can drive that. So if you're thinking of one, social media being like, yeah, this is a nice branding exercise, we get some fans, we have a big audience, it's more than that now. If you're thinking in the past, or maybe you've treated it this way, very common, is that, yeah, we need to do more social media. So like, let's put the summer intern on it, right? We never get around to it. Let's put the summer intern on it. It's like, and I'm all for summer internships, and I'm all for high performing summer interns. But if that's your approach, then probably you're not prioritizing it. So instead of that, how do you actually use it to drive core business actions and results? And it can drive that. And I don't just mean B2C, I mean B2B as well. And certainly for a lot of our clients, I mean, some of their best performing sort of business marketing efforts are like, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, depending on the type of companies they are. So I'll just pause there. The overall point I wanted to say, and Jackson, I'm open to any of your thoughts or other questions, is that social media success is less about having easy answers than it is about asking the right questions. And I'm sorry, I apologize for quoting myself there. That's a little embarrassing. But worth saying is that, by asking the right questions and all of this new way approach, we're talking about asking questions that provoke you to think about it in a highly experimental, scalable, and efficient way. You can scale your social media faster. You don't have to know all the answers, but you need to ask the questions that lead you to the answers. And Jackson, any comments on this? I know you work on a ton of this with clients and others.
Absolutely. Well, I actually have, speaking of right questions, I have a great question from Mike. And I think that this question really speaks to a pressure that a lot of marketers feel at a time when we're very kind of results-oriented, more results-oriented than ever. And the question's always being asked, what's the ROI on this? And what Mike's question is which platforms are offering the best value for advertisers at the moment? I think the answer to that question is very nuanced. And I think that there's going to be an element here of what you're going to get into. I know later in the presentation when you talk about seeding virality instead of paying for reach. But wanted to sort of set you up to think a little bit about that question and how we might answer it for Mike.
Sure, and I'll give you the short answer now, Jackson and Mike, and then I'll give you a longer answer later. So the short answer is that for certain platforms right now, it's the golden age. And when it's the golden age, what I mean is that they are prioritizing their platform in a way that supports content creators without charging content creators for everything. So I'm going to answer your question a little different. It's not just advertising. So for instance, it's the golden age of LinkedIn right now. If you create more content that's compelling content at a higher cadence, LinkedIn will give you an audience that in many ways you don't deserve to have yet. They will, because they're prioritizing themselves as a content platform. Now, part of the question from Mike was, well, what's the most efficient for an ad spend? Now, LinkedIn's a very expensive place to advertise, yet you can actually get a lot of reach for free on LinkedIn. So a way you might approach it, for example, for this, particularly for a B2B company, is you might do high quantity of great organic content on LinkedIn. You might do targeted, PPC ads that are going to be expensive, but you only pay people click, and you do it very, very targeted to narrow your audience. And then you retarget on another platform that's cheaper. Like it could be a retargeting network, it could be a Facebook, it could be someplace else. So that is one example. So LinkedIn is an opportunity. Although there's a lot of uncertainty in geopolitics about TikTok, TikTok right now is an opportunity. And then we're gonna get into later, it's not so much the platform that's the opportunity, but it's parts of the platform that they wanna prioritize. I'm gonna give you some suggestions for LinkedIn, for Instagram, for Facebook, and some others. So that's the short answer. We'll get into the longer answer. Let's start with the next section where I'm going to give you 6 rules. And specifically, we're going to answer the question, what new rules govern social media now as we know it? What are the new rules that have changed that impact for all of us that work in marketing, advertising, digital media? What are the new rules that govern us now? And the first rule is something that we already started with. And that is rule number 1, new rule. Don't buy audience reach, pay to seed viral sharing. And an example of this, and let me kind of show you this, is this post that we did for National Today. And just to kind of clarify here, I'll kind of leave my window here and show you what I mean by National Today. So this is the National Today platform. It's a website that we created and control about 2 years ago. And it's a site for all of these viral and buzzworthy holidays. So you can see like there's International Day of Friendship. There's, oh, that's a good one, National Chili Dog Day. There is National Cheesecake Day. There's some religious holidays. And we can kind of scroll down, you can kind of see there's different, like you can follow things on there, and there's different holidays. Like if you want to come over to August, and you want to see what's coming in August, we created this sort of master calendar that is, 5 million visitors visit per month, 10,000 media outlets use it as the source of truth now of what happens on what day. 3,500 influencers actively use it as part of our network to make posts about it. So it's this kind of great platform for sort of like understanding virality, engagement, and we use it for all sorts of experiments. So that being said, let's jump back into the presentation and let me give you an example of this point here, which is don't buy audience reach, pay to seed viral sharing. So this is a social post for National Today. This was for National Eat Ice Cream for Best Breakfast Day. And what you'll see, if you kind of look at these stats, is you'll see that we reached 27,000 people with a direct buy, but yet 94,000 people are reacting, commenting, or sharing to it. So how does that work, right? Why are we getting way more reactions, way more reach overall than just what we're paying for? And the answer is that we're seeding virality. So we're seeding it with a certain audience that is likely to share it. We're not paying for the overall audience we're going to get directly, and it's more efficient. So here's what this was. This was a ad boost of under $100. So to the people who say, oh, you can only get reach on Facebook. This is on Facebook. If you pay for that reach, everything's paid now. Not true. We did a small buy under $100. In addition, here's who we targeted. So we targeted those that were in our core demographic. So, for National Today, our core demographic would be like age 25 to 49, female. You consume a lot of holiday content. We looked at people who had an interest in, this is, by the way, this is National Eat Ice Cream for Breakfast Day. So you can imagine our interest. One interest, ice cream. Second interest, breakfast. Okay, we got both of those. And then we targeted people who had, because we get high traffic on our site, we targeted people who had visited our site sometime, I think in the past 6 months, as an indication of that they will engage in a holiday. They're interested in holidays, right? So it's not just someone who likes ice cream and likes breakfast and is female, but would never want to celebrate that on a holiday. So all of that was targeted. It was a small boost, right? But yet we got the equivalent reach of many, many, many multiples of if we would have paid for that audience engagement. So that's one of the big shifts in the new rules as you think about social media is don't pay for just reach or engagement. Pay to seed content with people who can help it blossom for you. And here's kind of a summation of that, which is paid social boosts can be used to help share-worthy content find its initial audience. So paid doesn't cover up bad content, right? Paid, it doesn't buy your way out of things that aren't engaging or things that aren't shareable. But if you use it in a more targeted fashion, those people will then share it. So pay to reach the people who are disproportionately likely to share it. And then you'll be much more efficient in your overall social ad spend. And yeah, Jackson, is there a comment or a question?
Yeah, interesting comment from Ben, who wanted to know.
Different Ben. Okay, good.
No, Ben Wharton Hunt.
Okay.
So Ben works in social media for collaboration tech. So obviously a space that's going to be really big on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And he was saying that they've found in their posting that they've actually seen big penalties on LinkedIn for posting too regularly. So he says that it vastly restricts reach as they start to post more than 2 to 3 times per day. Would be interested to get your thoughts on that and sort of where is that sweet spot where you're seeing, maximum reward without LinkedIn's algorithms punishing you?
We've seen the opposite. I mean, just to be, Ben, to be sort of direct, we across a lot of different clients and ourselves have ramped up number of posts. And now things change all the time. So I'm not discounting what you're saying. And I'm not saying there's maybe, it could be the space you're in, it could be the type of content. There's a lot of testing we'd have to do. But in general, right now, unlike other platforms, this is more like, Facebook circa 2014, Instagram circa 2016. For us, and happy to trade notes with you, like more posts, not low engagement posts, but more just general posts, doesn't have to be high engagement posts, have generally been dramatically increasing our reach. So we haven't seen the same kind of penalties for sure across a lot of different clients, though I don't discount that there might be pockets, and I don't discount things can change fast as well. But for us, more posts has generally meant more reach. Jackson?
Yeah, and I'll add there, Ben, that we're going to be sharing contact information at the end of the webinar. And if Ben Wharton Hunt wants to reach out and chat more and exchange notes with Ben, I think that would be an interesting conversation to have and potentially informative for everyone.
Yep, and then Jackson, if you want, I'll share it at the end, but if you just want to type it in, just my email address is Ben. Probably the fastest one is ben.kaplan, Kaplan, @prhacker.com. We just add that in the chat room. And so let's move on. And thank you for the point. And it actually underscores another point, which is that everything changes on social platforms all the time. So it's constantly testing and experimentation. Okay, new rule number 2. Create a sequence of winning posts to grow your audience faster. So keywords there important: sequence, not just one post, a sequence in a certain order. Winning posts. So now we're going beyond the LinkedIn discussion, actually say platforms that do penalize you, like Facebook, let's say, if you have low engagement. And then grow your audience faster. So anytime, it's a counterpoint to the point about, okay, will a platform penalize you for posting at too high a cadence or too high a frequency? Well, it could on some platforms, but the opposite is also true. Platforms that generally penalize you for posting too much low engaging content will often reward you for posting frequent, high engaging content, right? So the question is, how can you structure and sequence things to do it? Let me give you an example for National Today. So this is, oh, it's a little bit off the screen here at the top. Let's kind of scale this down a little bit so you can see this. This was another holiday. This is National No Bra Day. And this is actually an important day because actually it's about breast cancer awareness, right? So it has a tie-in with this like important meeting. It sort of has this kind of, you know, title that maybe like gets people's attention in social media, of course. And you can see, here's another example where we actually boosted this to reach only 6,500 people. But you can see that we're getting reactions, comments, and shares from 463,000 people. And some of the things that are notable is that, for instance, you know, of the 160,000 likes of this post, of 160,900, 160,600 are coming on shares. If you look at that kind of like upper right hand, here, if I get out of this mode, you'll see my cursor right up here, right? You can kind of see that there. And you can see, I mean, here's the Holy Grail right down here, shares on shares, right? 2,700 people were sharing something that was shared. So this thing is spreading. What I want to show you is that to get to this post was actually a sequence. It was not on its own. And I want to show you how you leverage algorithms to do that. So let me jump into this, and I call this the math of social sequencing. So here is the first post in the series. It was actually National Taco Day for National Today. So that one on October 4th got about 7,000 shares. And the whole key that what we're leveraging here is I'm going to show you the next post in the sequence. Not so much that it's because they're thematically related. I don't mean that. I mean that basically what someone engages with our content with a high level engagement, they're commenting, they're sharing, something that Facebook in this case sees as they really like our content, right? Then what happens is the Facebook algorithm will show them for a limited amount of time more stuff of us. So if they're sharing something that we posted, they're like, ooh, they're kind of into National Today, maybe at least temporarily, let's show them more National Today stuff. And if they keep engaging and liking it, we'll show them more and more and more. And if it falls off, then we'll start showing them less. So we started off a sequence, October 4, National Taco Day. Then October 8th was National Hug a Drummer Day. And by the way, there's lots of reasons. We'll talk about why certain holidays are viral a little bit. There's a lot of things with relationships and how you activate emotions related to relationships. So Hug a Drummer Day, you might not think that's a viral holiday, but there's some emotions going on in there so that make it so. So we sort of took National Taco Day, which we had a jump in audience because we had 7,000 shares. And we leveraged that pretty soon after for National Hug a Drummer Day. Now we're getting 63,000 shares. Here's the third in the sequence, what I mentioned earlier. October 9, National No Bra Day. So here comes National No Bra Day. So now this is the third in the sequence. It's almost like, you know, playing billiards where you like run the table. So we went from National Taco Day, shares are up. National Hug a Drummer Day. Now shares are even higher because we're getting into more people's feeds. Now we're still being prioritized. All those people who like those other ones are still liking us for National No Bra Day. We're at 500,000 plus shares. And let me take it one step further. So October 10, National, this is a real holiday. We didn't invent it. Slap Your Annoying Coworker Day. Then we break that out to 1.6 million shares on the top of that. So this was a process of basically showing Facebook that audiences really like and will engage and share our stuff, and using that in a sequence to continually build the audience reach. Now, what happens? Well, if you don't keep that up, it starts to taper off again. So the point being is not that like now forevermore, you can only have social posts that get shared 1.7 million times. It's not so much of that, but it's like you should start, instead of thinking, and then this affects editorial calendars, like, ooh, this is like our really great content. Let's space it out. Let's do, one this one month and one next month. Instead, you might want to think the opposite way with let's put this together. Let's combine this in a way that can amplify our reach further. And if you do that, what happens is instead of having individual posts, you do a sequence of 4 posts that get you over 2.2 million in social shares. And some of that was an engaging topic or post and how we structured it. But the other part of that is actually sequencing them in a way that they sort of amplify each other and continue to get us more audience reach. Jackson, does that make sense? Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that. Took me a second to get the screen back on. No, I think this is fascinating because at some level, having these sort of rapid fire major activations, I think can be counterintuitive. I think oftentimes it feels as though we need to space these things out and sort of save our best stuff a little bit. So I do think this maybe goes against some of the early lessons that we thought we learned, maybe 10 years ago in the world of social media, and feels a little bit more like this kind of rapid sequencing is kind of a compelling idea.
Well, and I think what we're going to see in a couple of the later rules is the sequencing is powerful, not only for like leveraging algorithms, but it's also powerful in how we create content. We're going to see that a little bit coming up soon and now. So new rule number 3, make content creation more scalable. And I'm going to show you how to do that through a concept called stackable content. And this is stackable content. And so we define it as stackable content is the process of making content creation more efficient, effective, and scalable by first creating your most important original material and then distilling derivative content from it. So basically, start with this core content you have and then make other content from it. And when we say, it's not so much like copy it or recut it or re-edit it or make it shorter, but start with this kind of like this core, kind of corpus, this core idea, and then find different other ways to reinvent it and expand it and amplify it and redeploy it and mash it up and all those sorts of things. And what we found, I'm going to show you an example of this, is it's number 1, much more efficient way to create content. We can create 30 pieces of content in a stackable content plan in probably a small fraction of the time of making 30 new pieces of content. 2, it's on message better, because usually if it's derived from this core piece of content that was like really important, you stay on message a bit better. And 3, as you have derivative versions of content, you learn faster. So you can say like, oh, I tweaked this way and suddenly engagement shot up. Oh, I did this to it and suddenly engagement shot down. Okay, how do I do it in the next piece in the content stack? Let me show you how this works. So we define it at our agency or any of the agencies I'm CEO of as first pillar content. So that's the core piece of deep content that's our primary source material, right? That's the kind of the heavy lift. Then there's macro content. So additional major content pieces that amplify the key ideas in that pillar content. Then we have micro content. So we might do a creative mashup of pillar and macro to recut it for new platforms and audiences. Maybe we have, it was like, let's say your piece of content is like this video and there was like one side note in the video that was like super funny that we'll pull out as a micro piece of content just on its own. And then there's nano content. So bite-sized pieces that are reinvented, reimagined. We'll do little posts. We'll do, things like Instagram stories, more like less polished, more stream of consciousness. So those are all different ways. So from pillar to macro to micro to nano, or put another way, a content stack looks like this. So you start with your pillar content. We have 3 pieces of macro content, 5 pieces of micro content, and 7 pieces of nano content. So it's an efficient way that we approach this. And the idea, which is great here, is that it makes you more efficient, but it also just makes you better. Why? Because you're continually reinventing the same thing and improving it, enhancing it. That's better than starting totally from scratch and having to do that like over and over again. Almost like I would kind of liken that to like, reinventing the social media content wheel 30 times in that month for 30 days versus actually deriving it and improving it and amplifying it. You kind of keep making that wheel better and better and better. So here's an example from some client work that Mike, who's on our team, I guess a different Mike, worked on. And here's a stackable content for one of his client projects where he actually was essentially a podcast episode. That contact stack became 3 Facebook videos, became a YouTube video. It was an Instagram video. And these are all different pieces. It's not just like shortcuts of the same video. It's like reinvented different ways. Became 3 Instagram stories, became 2 tweets. So that one podcast episode became 11 pieces of content across 5 different platforms. And not only that, you talk to Mike, you would realize this about him. He's watching closely how all of this is performing. He's then saying like, ooh, this version did great. Why did this, Instagram video do better than the YouTube version? Okay, how might I derive and distill more? How might I reinvent that piece? What else can we do with that? So stackable content is a powerful way to go. And what I truly believe is that in 5 to 7 years, all of us, whether in social media or content marketing, are going to think like this. We're going to create content stacks because it is just that more efficient, effective, and scalable. And suddenly all of us are content creators, and content is slow and expensive and difficult. And you invest a lot in, and returns and ROI aren't clear. If you work in this derived manner, from pillar to macro to micro to nano, it actually is a lot more scalable. You can measure better. And like a software developer, version 7.2 is going to be a lot better than version 1.0 of the content you create. So the key to unlocking social media is to make it rapidly scalable. Work laterally in terms of these content stacks instead of just sequentially. And the reason you want to be able to create content fast like this also is it lets you respond to trending content faster, right? It lets you, when you're fast, you can act fast. When you can act fast, you can leverage trends that are happening even beyond yourself. Another way to put it, we often talk about is you don't always have to create the wave. You just need to learn how to surf the wave. And if you can surf an existing wave, a great way to do that is to be able to create content quickly. A great way to create content quickly is through these content stacks. Brings us to new rule number 4. And new rule number 4 is use time triggers to drive coordinated action. And one of the things I want to talk about here is specifically what are the time triggers we're talking about and why are they so effective? So let me kind of pull this up here so we can all see it on the screen. And I'll put this here. And here's an example I kind of want to show you about the power of using time as a weapon in your social media arsenal. So the example is from our client Milkbone. And the challenge to us was we wanted to do something in social media. We wanted to make something, kind of trend for Milkbone. And we had a business challenge, which was Milkbone wanted to get people to purchase Milkbone dog treats for Valentine's Day, right? Like, hey, it's Valentine's Day. Come on, your fuzzy soulmate is worth a Valentine's Day gift, and they're gonna love a Milkbone treat, right? So we want to do that. But the problem was, if we're gonna solve for this, we can't do it on Valentine's Day because people, if it's on Valentine's Day already, don't have time to go buy a treat, right? So we got to do it before. So our solution, and this will show the power of time triggers on social, was to create doggy date night. We wanted something, remember, we're trying to message for Valentine's Day. We're trying to sell some dog treats, but we're going to use a time trigger. And so one, we're picking February 3rd because if we pick February 3rd, it's, 11 days before Valentine's Day. So we can leverage something that will let people prepare to make the purchase. But 2, we're even getting more specific. We're talking, this is going to be doggy date night. It's going to be a hashtag on Twitter. It's going to be from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern and 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific. And so we're going to then leverage social media influencers to seed this day and spread the word and create engagement. So this is what it looks like. So we're using a time trigger at a moment in time before Valentine's Day in a 2-hour window to concentrate all our posts, and let's see what happens. So we had influencers posting. So some of them are bloggers posting about this. Some are people just prolific on social media. Some are pet lovers. Some are just people that are lifestyle influencers. And again, we didn't pay a lot. We paid, I think we paid, it was like 7 people, $100 or a couple $100, so not super high budget, and the rest were unpaid. They were just getting Milkbone treats. Here is what happened. So we had 1,000 participants directly in 2 hours, right? So people who are directly posting and engaging. That actually helped us reach 10 million people overall that are just going to consume that, right? By creating that kind of time trigger at that moment. That got us 77 million impressions. Again, kind of vanity metric, not the most important metric, but gives us a sense of the reach comparative to other forms of media. And then we generated in that 2-hour time more than 7,400 social posts that went into this process. So the point of this is that by using a time trigger, a moment in time this day, it's the Green Creek Dog Eating Day, by further using a time trigger on the couple hours, we actually got that to trend that day on Twitter overall by concentrating together. So there is great power in the new rules of social media is using time as your ally and using time to drive people to action, using time to concentrate actions and events. And in my opinion, it's one of the least understood and most underutilized aspects of social media, which is how do you construct time and leverage time in such a way to help make the algorithms work in your favor. Because, and the reason time is important is because most of the algorithms are time-based. They're measuring what is your engagement, what is your reach, what are the comments, what are the shares in a certain time window. So if you start structuring what you do in a time window, it becomes more naturally friendly to optimizing these kind of social media algorithms. And Jackson, any more comments or questions there? I think this is the one part that I think like lots of people, I think, have a sense that, hey, if I do a call to action on the site, if we say the sale is today, it tends to help. We kind of know that time will increase the conversion, but a lot of times we don't sort of fully think about how time impacts social media.
Yeah, no questions right now from the chat, but I would be interested to hear, chat, sort of what have you seen to be the most effective approaches to calls to action? What have you seen work really well? And kind of what have you seen flop? I'd be interested to get your insights.
Okay, great. Well, and that brings us, because I know we're wrapping towards the sort of end of the hour. I'm going to kind of hit the last couple of rules and end with the most important thought of the day. We'll also open up to some additional questions. So new rule number 5 of 6. So new rule, leverage platform priorities to your own benefit. This is a powerful rule because what you have to realize is when I say platform, I mean social media platforms, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, Snapchat, whatever it might be, LinkedIn, whatever the platform is, the platform has some goals of what they're trying to accomplish with the platform. And so what you've got to do is you've got to understand what their goals are and make them align with your goals. And then you can get oversized reach. For an example of that would be, for instance, let me give you some examples of some platforms here. So actually, so here are some current platform priorities. So LinkedIn is all about, right, prioritizing live video and slideshows right now, right? They're wanting to reward people. So if you see like someone go live with video, and then maybe this is a point to, like, I think Ben, you were commenting earlier, like, is it possible to post too much on LinkedIn? Well, right now they're loving live video, right? So they're going to prioritize that in the algorithm. We're also going to prioritize more slideshows. Or Twitter, voice tweets. Or Facebook, long form original video, because they're still trying to compete with YouTube. Or Instagram, shopping section, Instagram Reels. So all of those are things that if we understand, and they change, right, over time, but if we understand this is the goal of the platform, is to make this feature used, then let's adapt our content to give the platform what it wants, and our message will get to ride along with it. And that's really powerful for making the content work for you and getting disproportionate reach. So here's an example for some work on the movie The House, kind of the Will Ferrell, Amy Poehler movie. Mike, this was his baby on our team, and some of the things that he was leveraging for this. So Facebook was promoting live video because it's The House, which is kind of this, if you've seen the movie, it's kind of this sort of like casino gambling themed comedy. So live video was created featuring this sort of casino inspired competition. And by leveraging that point, that could have been, a static post on Facebook. That could have been just a regular, video. That could have been a different format. But by basically creating the content in the format that Facebook wanted to reward, in this case, live video, the result was over 6,000 entries in 20 minutes without huge amounts of paid spend to do it, right? Leveraging organic. So that's an example too of like, is to understand the priorities of the platform, and then you can use it to get disproportionate reach. Even on something like Facebook, where supposedly you have to pay for everything. And then, finally, new rule number 6. Activate key emotions for high audience engagement. So if you understand that emotions, and especially activating emotions, are the raw currency of social sharing, you can leverage that in your content to get more sharing and amplification. What do I mean by activating emotions? Activating emotions are not the same as something that's emotional. Let me give you an example of an emotion that is very emotional, but is not activating. That is sadness. Sadness. So if people are really sad about something, they don't share it in huge numbers. They might go home and they're sad and they're melancholy and hug someone they loved, or crawl up in bed and pull the covers up, or those are actions you do when you're sad. So it's very emotional, but it's not great for social sharing. On the contrary, what is an emotion that's great for social sharing? Activating the emotion called awe. What I mean is AWE. That's our sense of connection, wonder, understanding of the world. How does this all work? How does this fit together? Awe, AWE, is an activating emotion. So how can we leverage activating emotions like that to get more social media reach and sharing and ultimately ROI? Let me give you an example of awe in action. So this was the 9 Lives Challenge, and I gave you a dog example, so I know there's a lot of dog lovers watching this, so I wanted to give you a cat lover example too. So 9 Lives cat food, and we were tasked with rebooting, if you remember, Morris the cat, who was like the original cat celebrity, basically Grumpy Cat before Grumpy Cat. And we wanted to dramatically increase the audience of Morris the cat, but we didn't have budget for any kind of big ad buys, so we couldn't do anything like that. So we wanted to leverage activating emotions to do this. So the solution was we adjusted Morris content to focus on emotions like awe that cause his fans and followers to take desired actions and share our content organically. So essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna use cat content to create a sense of wonder and understanding about how the world works. Put another way, we're actually gonna make insights for humans about how the world works using cats. Okay, that was the difference. So here's an example of this. And by the way, just if you're looking at the social, it's meant to be sort of super meme-like. It's meant to be super organic. So it's not meant to look super polished. It's kind of the style of this type of content after we had tested a lot of content. So here was a little series called Morris Cat Wisdom. So Morris Cat Wisdom number 2, nap to win. And if you read the little copy there, it says, you deserve a good nap. Personally, I sleep 16, 17, 18, maybe 19 hours a day, but not 20 hours. That would be excessive. Okay, so the awe human insight there is, you know what? Take a nap, hit the snooze, set your alarm an hour later, you deserve it, right? Naps are good. So we're actually saying that message, but we're delivering it through a cute cat. Now, second one here, Morris Cat Wisdom number 6, don't blame yourself. And you see the little plant fell over, and the caption is, stuff happens, things fall over. Were you the one who discovered gravity? Unless your name is Sir Isaac Newton, the answer is no. So what we're saying with this cat is actually, you know what? Give yourself a break. You made a mistake. That's okay. Don't be so hard on yourself. It happens. Don't blame yourself, right? So that's 2 examples. So this was just one content series, but all across this, we're like, let's do human insights delivered by cats that help us understand the world and activate awe. Here's what happened in this kind of 2-month test window to start. Number of shares for Morris the cat went up 11 times. In the 2 months prior, 7,500 shares. After we started activating awe emotion, 83,000 shares. Organic audience reach, unpaid on Facebook, went from 2,600 before. By the way, before was like a famous social media agency had the client before us. So this is sort of compared to like they were making good content. It just wasn't activating emotions. So before 2,600 average audience reach per post, after 25,000, up 10x. Number of likes, up 11x once we activate awe and activating emotions. Number of comments, up 7x, goes from 15 to 94. And if you look at this all together as a whole, what happened is we basically were able to replicate what was the equivalent of what would have been probably a $500,000 ad buy on Facebook overall over the course of kind of the next year. We're able to replicate that purely with organic and very small paid buys. I'd say sometimes we'd seed content with $10, $20, $30. So we basically could get $500,000 worth of reach, but instead of paying for it, we did it by activating emotions like awe, and those activating emotions are incredibly powerful. So those are the 6 new rules, and I want to end on my most important thought of the day. But Jackson, are there any kind of final comments or questions before I kind of end on probably my biggest tip of the day?
Sure. Ben would love to hear your #1 trend you expect to see with B2B social media marketing in the next 12 months.
Okay.
He understands you don't have a crystal ball, but you know, we are expectantly waiting your wisdom.
Okay, sure. And so the question, and I've actually, by the way, I wanted to say, like, I actually think B2B social media marketing, I think, is a huge opportunity right now, because I think a lot of people don't know, how to leverage it well. What I would say as a huge trend in social media marketing for B2B is leveraging like sort of the C-suite or other thought leaders in your organization, as opposed to just the main channel of the company. So meaning, let's say we talk about LinkedIn. There's the company channel, but there's also, of course, like the C-suite folks. There might be some really skilled technical experts. There's some marketing thought leaders. There's all of those people. And the trend, I would say, I think that is coming, we're doing a lot of this with our clients, and clients I've found much more willing to do this, saying, it's not just the main channel of our official company channel, but we're leveraging the personal profiles to be thought leaders of all of these individuals. So I think what you're going to start seeing is content plans for companies will be leveraging more of that executive bench, leveraging more of their channels. And we even have an offering that we call Platform U. What Platform U is like, let's create individual thought leaders, create great content, and really accelerate the profile of an individual. We call that Platform U, but then what companies are doing, which I think will be a trend, is actually combining, let's have 5 to 7 people of our top leaders all have Platform U's. Let's aggregate that under the company umbrella, and let's use that to leverage ROI and especially lead generation for B2B companies by making sure that all of our representatives, all of our ambassadors are providing great content that is synced with what the marketing team and the sales team are doing to lead into the sales funnel. So that is one huge trend I see, and I think that that trend is really now. So let me end with my final thoughts of the day. First of all, in terms of the new rules, one of the things I wanted to kind of say and actually let me put this on the screen here, is just for the final bit, is that, like we said, you don't have to have all the right answers, but you have to ask the right questions. And can you ask the right questions that start helping you think in terms of how, instead of paying for reach, can I seed it with the right people who will get me more reach? How can I start thinking about the time triggers that we create and how that influences the content? How can I start sequencing content better? How can I derive it from pillar, macro, micro, nano? How can I activate key emotions? Even if I'm in a B2B setting, okay, I have a business audience, it's not cat stuff, but there's still emotions that people face in their job when they're frustrated with their prior vendor. And how do I tap into that frustration? Or when they get that promotion or they get that raise because they didn't just meet the KPI, they blew it out of the water. And what does that feel like? And we can activate emotions to do that. And how do we then leverage the platforms by what they're prioritizing? How do we, like deliver a live video because LinkedIn wants it? Or we, deliver the latest Instagram feature in a way that we can leverage it. So all of those things are powerful levers, but we don't have to have it all figured out. And one of the biggest things I find when we train new people in social media is people they really want certainty, right? Like, tell me exactly how this works, and then I will exploit it. But instead, what really works well is, instead of living in a state of certainty, you live in a state of asking questions and questioning everything and experimenting, and you'll be much, much better off. So to kind of go to my kind of final thought of the day, and if we kind of, here's the quick, you get the flash recap if you're a speed reader on the screen. But if you of today's presentation, so there's Milk Donut, there's the house example, finally 9 lives, Morris the cat. And it brings us to the final thought of the day that I'll end on. So number one, what is the one thing? What is the one thing that you either learned today that you want to explore further, that you're going to implement tomorrow? Tweet at me at Benjamin Kaplan. Let me know what is that one thing, because we love to know what is that sticky, what is that simple, surprising, or significant idea that people are taking away. And also, that's what we benefit. What you benefit is, in my opinion, you don't have to implement like all 6 new rules tomorrow. Find one thing that you can leverage and really works for you. So that's kind of like the first point. Next, I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, and we can kind of consume each other's content there. So one little hack you can do is if you take your mobile phone up and you actually open up your LinkedIn app, go to that little, it's right there. You can sort of see them. I'm pointing to it on the screen, the little QR code in the search bar. If you click that, you can say scan someone else's code. If you scan my code, which is on your screen right now, it will take you to this link. Or Jackson, another way to do it is just post that link, linkedin.com/in/KaplanBen. And connect with me there. And I do get a lot of requests. I don't accept all of them. So if you just simply put in your request, like saw you in the webinar, want to connect, then anyone who came to the webinar, I want to connect with. So do that there as well. And we'll connect and we can start exchanging ideas on LinkedIn as well. And then third, my email is ben.kaplan@prhacker.com. That's one of them. Like I said, top agency, we have 10 different agencies all under the top network. What top stands for is test, optimize, and perform. So it's a methodology that we believe in, which is try little experiments, make them better, and then scale the heck out of that thing. Test, optimize, perform, it's top. PR Hacker is one of our agencies, but we also have a data marketing agency called Top Data. We have many, many others as well in certain verticals like Top Tech or Top Health or Top Finance. So if you're interested in having our help with social media or influencer marketing or PR marketing or digital advertising or branding, or you just need an amazing explainer video, those are all things that we do. We're in more than 20 countries around the world, and with core offices in Austin, Texas, and San Francisco, and New York, and London. And we would love to potentially work with you, or just ask a question at ben.kaplan@prhacker.com. And finally, with the final point of the day, if you're interested in the slides, go to events.benkaplan.com. New rules of social, new-rules-of-social. And if you sign up there, we'll send you the slides and some of our follow-ups where we're going to be releasing some new social media blueprints as well for how to create this kind of really compelling content. So final thought of the day and the final wrap up is that if you're thinking about social media, how we've always thought about it, and if you're thinking about the same way you thought about it a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you're probably not optimizing it. And so instead of that, just remember that social media is an art and a science about asking the right questions and testing things and optimizing things and scaling things. And if you can think a little bit more about not just buying your way out of problems or buying your way to solutions, but instead think about how do you leverage the platform? How do you leverage psychology? How do you leverage time triggers and emotions to get your results? You'll be much better off. And don't worry about having to make your next post go viral tomorrow. Instead, make it 3% more viral, 6% more viral, 15% more viral. And that's like compound interest. It adds up over time. And suddenly you've gone from your 10 like post to your 10,000 like post. And that really is possible. And of course, we care more about likes. We care more about core business metrics as well. So thank you all for coming. Wish you that kind of success with your social media posts, and we'll see you next time. By the way, topic for next week, we're about to release it. Here's a little preview, is going to be the new rules of SEO. So if you're interested in scaling up your Google rankings, now is a great time to do it. Why? Because lots of people in the pandemic are taking their eye off the ball. Lots of marketing departments shrunk. And so if you want to leverage it now, tune in next week, the new rules of SEO. All right. Thanks so much. Thanks, Jackson. Cheers.